"We don't have space for your kids at Christmas," my mom said. My brother smirked. "Yeah, just bring yourself. They're too loud anyway." I nodded. That night, I took back every toy I had bought for my nephews. At 7:10 a.m., my sister texted, "Where are the presents? They're crying." I replied with, "It was one of those moments where you just sit there stunned, not even sure what just happened." I was at home 2 weeks before Christmas, and the kids were in the living room decorating the little fake tree we pulled out of storage. They were so excited, asking questions about when we'd go to Grandma and Grandpa's, if the cousins would be there, if we'd get to sleep over like last year. I told them we would. At the time, I really believed it. Then the call came. My mom, completely straight-faced, told me they wouldn't have space for the kids this year, like it was some kind of hotel booking issue. She said my sister-in-law's family would be there, and it would be too crowded and too loud, and things were already hectic. "You can still come," she said, "just not the kids." Before I could even process it, my brother's voice chimed in from the background. "Yeah, just bring yourself. They're too loud anyway." It was like a punch in the stomach. I think I just said, "Okay," and hung up. What else was there to say? I sat on my bed for a long time after that, trying to figure out how to break it to my children without breaking them. I couldn't do it, so I didn't. I told them plans had changed and we'd be doing our own special Christmas at home this year. They were quiet. They didn't cry, but I saw it on their faces. They didn't understand why we weren't going. They just nodded and kept decorating like nothing had happened. But something had. The part that made it even worse, I had already delivered all the gifts. A week earlier, I dropped them off at my parents' house to keep them out of sight from my own kids. I always went all out for Christmas. It wasn't about showing off. It was just how I was raised. If you love people, you show up for them. I bought my nephews what they'd been begging for all year: a Nintendo Switch for the youngest, a refurbished iPhone for the oldest. I wrapped boxes of puzzles, Lego sets, action figures, and crafts. I even included those little extras like socks, candy, Christmas books. I thought I was doing something good that night. After the call, I couldn't sleep. I just kept thinking about how easy it was for them to write off my children like they didn't matter, like they were background noise. So, around 10:30 p.m., I drove back to my parents' house. I still had a spare key. No one was up. I let myself in, went straight to the dining room corner where I'd stacked the gifts, and took every single one. They hadn't even moved them. They were still sitting there like forgotten donations. I packed them into my trunk, quietly closed the door, and drove home. I didn't tell the kids. I didn't tell anyone. Then Christmas morning came. At exactly 7:10 a.m., my sister's text came in all caps. "Where are the presents? They're crying." I stared at it for a long time before replying. "I brought myself, remember?" I waited. Nothing. No reply. Not from her. Not from my mom. Not from my brother. They'd set up their whole day expecting me to fix everything, like I always did. I was the one who brought the food, the gifts, the sparkle. I was the one who paid for the rental car my sister used every Christmas to get home. I helped with their bills. I let my parents use my card for groceries, gas, whatever they needed. I never kept track. I just gave. And all it took was one phone call for them to make it clear: my kids weren't welcome. They had no idea that the presents were just the beginning. The day after Christmas was weirdly quiet. No texts, no calls, not even the usual passive-aggressive "hope you had a good day" message from my mom. They were probably stewing. I imagined them pacing around, whispering about me, confused about what went wrong. They never actually asked why I took the gifts back. No one even acknowledged what they said on the phone. But I wasn't waiting for an apology. That morning, I logged into my banking app and removed my parents as authorized users on my secondary card. It had been a quiet thing I did a couple years back just to make their lives easier. Groceries, gas, small things here and there. They treated it like some unspoken entitlement, but now it was over. By noon, my mom called, not to say anything meaningful, just to say her card wasn't working and could I check on it. I told her it should be fine and ended the call. Later, I texted my sister. "Did you still need help renting the car for New Year's?" She responded immediately. "Yes, please. I was just about to ask." I replied, "Can't this year. Things are tight." She didn't answer after that. I knew she was pissed. She probably thought I was doing it out of spite. And honestly, I was. But not out of pettiness, out of clarity. I wasn't going to be the one holding the net anymore while they all pretended they were flying. I went into the closet and pulled out all the gifts I had taken back. My kids never knew they were meant for someone else. I gave the console to my son and wrapped the Lego sets for my daughter's birthday, which was coming up in January. The iPhone I held on to. I was thinking of selling it, but I ended up donating it to a local women's shelter that helps teens who've aged out of foster care. It felt better than giving it to a kid who wouldn't even say thank you. Then the guilt campaign started. My aunt texted me randomly asking if everything was okay between me and my mom. Then my cousin messaged me a screenshot of a Facebook post my sister had made, something vague about some people forgetting the meaning of family. I didn't respond to any of it. By New Year's Eve, my sister texted again. The boys keep asking why you hate them. I stared at the message for a long time. My nephews, they weren't part of the game, but it wasn't about hating them. It was about protecting mine. So I wrote back, I don't hate anyone, but you all forgot that my kids exist. Still nothing. The irony. My ex-husband, who lives 3 states away and has always been hit or miss, managed to send our kids a big package. Wrapped gifts, thoughtful cards. He even included a handmade ornament with their initials. It arrived late, but it arrived. They were thrilled. Meanwhile, the people they saw every year gave them nothing. Not even a phone call, not even a card. That was the moment I knew I wasn't going back. Not next year, not ever. They were so used to me filling in every gap that they never noticed when I started taking things away. But they were about to. The fallout wasn't loud. That's what surprised me. No dramatic confrontations, no screaming matches, just slow silence, like a fabric unraveling stitch by stitch. A few days into January, my mom finally called again. Her voice was normal. Too normal. She asked about the kids, asked how our Christmas was, like nothing had happened, like she hadn't disinvited them. I answered politely, kept it short. I didn't bring it up, and neither did she. That was their favorite trick. Pretend the wound doesn't exist, then act confused when you start limping. She ended the call by saying she hoped we'd come over soon. I said I'd think about it. I didn't. I think they assumed it would all go back to normal once I cooled down. That's how they talked about me. Emotional, dramatic, sensitive. All code words for stops giving when she gets tired of being used. That month, I didn't send over the usual money for Dad's medications. He didn't call. My mom did. She said something vague about insurance issues. I told her the pharmacy could help her figure it out. She didn't say anything after that. I think it finally hit her that the card was really off, that the faucet was dry. My sister texted me 2 weeks later, asking if I'd watch her kids for the weekend so she could go to a wedding. I just responded, no, sorry, no excuse, just the truth. Her reply was one word, wow. A week after that, my brother's wife sent me a message. She said she wasn't trying to get involved, but that the kids were really sad and that everyone misses you. No mention of what had happened. No ownership, just guilt dressed as concern. I didn't respond. I was spending more time with my own kids than I had in months, not rushing around to make everyone else's life easier, not burning money and energy on people who didn't even like my children in the room. We made hot cocoa every other night, played the Switch, took long walks around the neighborhood. I watched them settle into something peaceful. They looked like they finally didn't feel like second-class citizens in their own family. One night, my daughter asked, "Why didn't we go to Grandma's this Christmas?" I said, "Because it wasn't a place for us this year." She thought about it for a second and said, "That's okay. I liked our Christmas better." And that was it. No tears, just truth. Meanwhile, cracks started forming in the family machine. I heard through a cousin that my sister's car broke down and she couldn't get to work, that my parents had been asking around for help with bills, that my brother's wife was complaining about how everything's fallen on us lately. They were starting to feel the weight, the kind I used to carry without them noticing. Every little thing I used to do quietly had been holding up a lot more than they realized. Without me, the whole showed. But none of them called to say sorry. None of them said, "We were wrong." And now I wasn't just gone. I was watching, and I was done playing dumb. By mid-January, things started getting oddly transactional. The silence was over, not with apologies or reconciliation, but with Venmo requests. Random, Unspoken requests from my mom. $25 here, $50 there. One was labeled for gas. Another said, we need food. She never texted or called to explain, just sent the request like it was still December and I was still playing my role. I didn't send a dime. A week later, my phone rang. My mom. She sounded pleasant at first. Too pleasant. She asked about the kids, what they were up to, how school was going, like we hadn't just spent Christmas divided by an invisible wall that she built. I let her talk. Then she said, by the way, I sent a couple Venmo things. Did you see them? I said, I did. She paused, expecting me to offer something. When I didn't, she tried again. Things have just been a little tight lately. I said, do you remember what you told me before Christmas? She didn't answer right away. Then came the inevitable excuse. I didn't mean it the way it sounded. It was just going to be a lot of people this year. We were trying to keep things simple, right? Simple. And apparently the simplest way to make space was to remove 2 children from the equation. I told her I wouldn't be helping out anymore, financially or otherwise. She gave one of those tight, breathy sighs, then said, well, I hope this isn't permanent. We're still family. I didn't say anything back. I think we both knew the answer already. And then a few days later, something strange happened. My son came into the kitchen holding his tablet, looking a little confused. He asked, why did Uncle Tom say Santa doesn't like us? I froze. What are you talking about? He showed me the screen. My brother had posted an Instagram story, short video, probably meant to disappear in 24 hours, but not fast enough. He was standing in his kitchen filming a tiny box of off-brand building blocks on the counter. He said, guess this is what Christmas looks like when someone decides to play the Grinch. In the background, his wife laughed and said, next year we'll just tell the kids Santa's allergic to drama. They didn't say my name. They didn't have to. They made my kids the punchline in some petty online joke, turned a family betrayal into content for their friends. My children were excluded, and now they were mocked for it, and it reached them through a screen they weren't even supposed to be watching that day. That night, I went into our old family group chat, the one where we used to plan holidays and birthdays and text each other random memes. No one had said a word in it since December. I sent one message. You can unfollow me in real life too. Then I left the chat. No one followed up. Not one call. Not one message. Not even a half-hearted defense. But here's what they hadn't thought about. I still had all their tax paperwork. Every year they sent me their W-2S, their receipts, screenshots, and login info. I'd file everything. Help them get better returns. Fix their mistakes. They never even learned how to do it themselves. My sister had already mailed hers like clockwork the first week of January. A manila envelope with her scribbled note. Can you do it by the 20th? Need the refund ASAP. I slid it into a drawer and didn't touch it. No message, no warning, just nothing. Let them figure it out this year, or don't. Because what they never realized is that I wasn't just the one who brought the gifts. I brought the knowledge, the money, the support, the stability. I was the invisible infrastructure they all leaned on, and they took it for granted because I made it look easy. Now, piece by piece, I was dismantling it all, quietly, thoroughly, and they were starting to feel it. February came, and the air shifted. It wasn't dramatic. It was the kind of change that creeps in slowly until suddenly it's undeniable. My sister texted me first. No greeting, just, hey, did you file yet? My refund usually hits by now. I stared at it for a minute, then put the phone down. She waited a day before following up. Mary, I really need it. I have rent coming up. Can you at least let me know what's happening? I replied the next day. I didn't file anything this year. You'll have to do it yourself. She responded in under 5 minutes. Are you serious? Why wouldn't you tell me that earlier? I've been waiting weeks. I didn't reply, not because I was being cruel, but because I had nothing left to explain. She'd never said thank you when I did it. Not once in the 7 years I handled her taxes. Not one gift card, not one kind word. Just expectation, just assumption. 2 days later, I got a call from my dad. That was unusual. He opened with small talk, asking about the weather, how work was going, if the kids were doing all right. I knew it was coming, so I just waited. Then he said it. I heard you're not helping with taxes this year. I confirmed it. He went quiet, then said, "We've always relied on you for that stuff." I asked, "You mean the same way my kids rely on having family who want them around?" Silence. Eventually he said, "Your mom didn't mean to upset you. Things just got messy with the holidays." But I wasn't angry anymore. Not really. I'd passed that stage. I just didn't trust them, and I didn't owe them the stability they never gave me or my children. I told him I hoped they figured things out and that I had to go. That week, I got an email. My brother's wife, of all people, formal tone, subject line, help. She explained that they were trying to refinance the house and needed help organizing financial paperwork. Said I'd always been the one to handle stuff like this. Then casually at the bottom, she added, "It'd be great to get that iPhone back if you haven't already sold it. It was meant for Tyler, and he's been pretty upset." I reread it twice, wondering if she was being serious. I didn't respond. They thought all of this was temporary, that I was just being emotional, that eventually I'd get over it, come back into the fold, pick up the slack again. But what they didn't realize was that I was watching them learn how to drown. My mother's friend, a woman I barely knew, messaged me a few days later. She said she'd heard there was drama and hoped I wouldn't let a misunderstanding ruin things. That family is everything. I didn't even answer that one, but something strange happened near the end of the month. A package arrived for my kids. No return address, just a stack of books, some candy, a card that said, "You are so loved." Inside, there were 2 $100 bills tucked between the pages. My son thought it was from my ex again, but I knew it wasn't. His gifts always came through Amazon. This one felt more personal. Maybe it was someone in the family finally realizing how far they pushed, or maybe someone saw the way the tide had turned. My kids were okay. They were more than okay. They were thriving, because for the first time, everything they were given came from someone who chose them. The people who used to ignore them were now struggling, scrambling, missing tax deadlines, losing access to money, asking for help in ways they never had to before. And all I did was stop giving. No warning, no fight, just absence. And absence, it turns out, is louder than anything I ever could have said. By March, I realized something strange. I hadn't cried once. Not when they excluded my kids. Not when I pulled the gifts out from under their tree. Not when they started unraveling one by one, trying to patch up the damage without ever acknowledging the cause. I hadn't cried because for the first time in years, I didn't feel powerless. I felt free. One morning, I got a text from my brother. "Hey, Mom's in the hospital. Nothing major. Blood pressure. Just thought you should know." That would have worked on me once. The vague guilt. The implication that if I didn't show up now, I was the bad one. But even that felt different now. They weren't informing me out of concern. It was bait. I sent back, "Hope she's okay." That was it. 2 hours later, my mom texted from her hospital bed, "Are you really going to let this family fall apart over Christmas?" I read it once and didn't answer, because it wasn't about Christmas. It was about years of being the backup plan, the one who fixed things, funded things, figured everything out while my kids were treated like background noise. It wasn't one moment, it was 1,000 little ones. This time, I just let them pile up until I had enough. Around the same time, a letter came in the mail, handwritten. I recognized the writing immediately. My sister. It was 2 pages long. She wrote about how hard things had been, how she missed the way things used to be, how the kids, her kids, kept asking when they'd see Aunt Mary again. She never mentioned what she said on the phone that night, never mentioned that "they're too loud anyway" comment, just said we were all stressed. "I think we forgot how much you do for everyone." That part made me laugh. We forgot, not we took it for granted, not we treated you and your kids like an afterthought. Forgot. I folded the letter and put it in the drawer with her tax documents, still untouched. In April, I booked a trip for me and the kids somewhere warm, just the 3 of us. We stayed at a hotel, ordered room service, swam in a rooftop pool. I watched them laugh, truly laugh, not trying to win anyone's attention or compete with cousins or walk on eggshells. We video chatted with their dad while we were there. He was trying, in his clumsy way. He asked if they got his New Year's package, and they smiled and held up the handmade ornament he'd sent. It was uneven and a little crooked, but it was theirs, and it came from someone who cared. When we got back, I saw one last message in my inbox from my mom. "We're doing a family brunch next weekend. I hope you'll bring the kids. Everyone would love to see them." There was "bring the kids," not just "bring yourself." I stared at it for a while, then deleted it without answering. Because they didn't miss my kids. They missed what my kids represented, the feeling of family, the warmth, the convenience, the illusion that they were good people because someone else, me, was doing the heavy lifting. I had already spent years building a bridge. They lit it on fire, and now, even as they watched the smoke, they still hadn't learned how to build anything themselves. I wasn't angry anymore, just done. The door didn't slam. It didn't even creak. It just closed, and stayed that way. For weeks after that brunch invitation, I half expected another call, another text, some dramatic attempt at reconciliation. But nothing came. It was as if they had finally realized that their old tricks no longer worked. No guilt, no obligation, no silent treatment could pull me back into the cycle I had walked away from. Life without them became strangely simple. I woke up on weekends without a barrage of requests waiting for me. No one asked for last-minute babysitting, no surprise bills, no vague emergencies that somehow always landed in my lap. Instead, mornings were filled with pancakes and cartoons, with laughter echoing through a house that finally felt like ours, and only ours. At first, I thought the silence would feel lonely, but it didn't. It felt like peace. My kids started inviting friends over, filling the house with noise that once would have been criticized as too much. But now it was the sound of freedom. No one was standing by to shush them, no one treating them as inconvenient. Just children being children in a home that welcomed every part of them. I began to notice the little ways my own heart was healing too. For years, I had measured my worth by what I could provide for others. If my parents needed groceries, I covered it. If my sister needed rent, I made it happen. If my brother wanted gifts for his kids, I delivered. And still, somehow, it was never enough. Walking away showed me that it had never been about what I gave. It had been about how easily they could take. And when the taking stopped, the silence began. I started saying yes to myself in small ways. Yes to a quiet evening with a book after the kids went to bed. Yes to treating myself to a new pair of shoes without wondering who else's needs I was supposed to prioritize instead. Yes to putting money into savings rather than draining it to keep others afloat. These weren't extravagant choices. They were ordinary, but they were mine. My kids noticed the difference too. They began to trust that Christmas or birthdays or even just random Tuesdays were about us, not about whether extended family would approve or include them. My son no longer asked if Grandma would like his drawings. My daughter stopped rehearsing little performances in hopes of impressing an uncle who never cared enough to clap. They stopped waiting for validation that was never coming, and instead found it here, at home, in the love we had for each other. Months passed, and spring turned into summer. Family news still trickled in through cousins or the occasional social media post. I heard about missed mortgage payments, about my sister juggling jobs after her car finally broke down for good, about my brother's wife venting online that some people don't understand loyalty. But none of it came directly to me. They had stopped asking. And in their silence, I found a strange kind of confirmation. They had always seen me as a resource, not a person. One afternoon in June, as I sat watching the kids run through sprinklers in the yard, I realized just how much lighter I felt. The constant hum of dread, the fear that at any moment someone would demand something of me, was gone. In its place was calm. For the first time in decades, I wasn't carrying anyone else's load. There were moments, of course, when guilt tried to creep back in. Nights when I remembered my nephews' faces, or when I wondered if my parents were sitting in their house blaming me for the fracture. But every time that ache started, I reminded myself, I didn't break the family. I just stopped letting the family break me. By the time Christmas rolled around again, I didn't wait for an invitation. I didn't expect a call. Instead, I planned another trip. Just me and my kids. We went skiing, built snowmen, drank cocoa in a lodge by the fire. My kids fell asleep each night tired but smiling, wrapped in the kind of joy no one could take away from them. On Christmas morning, as they tore open gifts chosen with care, my daughter whispered, "This is the best Christmas ever." And my son, grinning through a pile of wrapping paper, added, "And no one said we were too loud." That was the moment I knew with absolute certainty we were free. Not free from family entirely, but free from the version of family that had asked us to shrink, to sacrifice, to disappear. Free from people who loved what I gave, but not who I was. Free from a cycle of obligation disguised as love. The door that closed on that cold December night had never reopened, and I no longer wanted it to, because in walking away, I hadn't lost a family. I had built one, right here, with the two people who mattered most. And that was enough, more than enough. It was everything.